Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. This is going to be an exciting one. Last week we saw the introduction of DJED to the Cardano DeFi ecosystem, to Cardano as a blockchain, and we're going to be talking about that predominantly in this video and the impact that it's had on Cardano's DeFi ecosystem. We've seen a lot of volume highs for many projects that were already existing within Cardano. And actually, I would argue that DJED still has a hell of a long way to go. So not only are we going to be looking at the role that DJED has had within the Cardano ecosystem, the total value locked, the individual projects in terms of volume, we're going to be looking at DJED on the global stage of stablecoins and where it's at. Because despite this being an extremely bullish thing, in my opinion, having an algorithmic, I know there's an argument at the moment between whether it's an over-collateralized or an algorithmic stablecoin. I know people are a little bit wary because, of course, Luna's UST was algorithmically backed. The problem really for Luna's UST was they actually started to back it with not just Luna, but introduced things like Bitcoin, and then actually were looking to introduce Ethereum, and that's when things went wobbly. But we covered all that when it happened. We were short Luna actually into that, not knowing that it was going to implode, but for technical reasons. But I don't want to argue about whether it's an algorithmic or over-collateralized stablecoin. I'm sure you guys will leave a comment with your own thoughts. But actually, it's only accrued at $11.8 million in terms of total value locked. And in the grand scheme of stablecoins, it hasn't really gained any kind of serious traction. Now, that's not me hating on it. That still could be to come. And I think this is a helpful exercise to look at where DJED finds itself in the global stage of stablecoins. I am hopefully going to be interviewing Anzen, who are, of course, coming up with USDA, a fiat-backed stablecoin. Will that be a little bit more impactful? We will see, because there's a kind of risk element taken out of it with the sort of crypto-backed side of things. So this is predominantly what we're going to be doing. Whilst all of this is going on, Charles Hoskinson, of course, is back to regular meditation. Absolute beast, going through these bull and bear markets, having been a kind of veteran and been here for a long time with no kind of phase at all. So we're going to spend the first half of the video looking at that. Then we'll look at Cardano's price. We're going to look at some interesting things happening, because you've seen, I believe, the largest amount of whale over $100,000 transactions since last year, basically. And this is all at a critical kind of time. And it's very, very interesting. We're going to be exploring this. Why is this? Are whales accumulating? Are they manipulating the market? Is this potentially exchanges that are doing this? And, we'll kind of summarize it all. And then you guys will know that we did a video not that long ago. We do loads of Cardano video, guys. If you're into Cardano, make sure you sub to this channel. We were looking at, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we brought up this article here that was looking at inflows. Now, we've seen over the last year outflows out of the cryptocurrency market broadly. We're now seeing inflows. And the interesting thing is, with Grayscale's Ethereum fund, which contains Cardano, it's the largest holding in terms of their sort of smart contract layer one altcoins. They saw inflows, and also we're seeing, we saw one of the largest increases, by the way, in that Grayscale trust. We're also seeing inflows in coin shares, and this is the one that we looked at. We also looked at the one prior to that, which was on the 30th of January, and there was one that came out yesterday, which continued to see inflows, a little bit less, but still inflows into said projects like Cardano. We saw inflows into Solana, Cardano, and Polygon. Cardano is consistently a coin that sees inflows into it. So is there anything to do with these whales taking place, and is this sort of smart money that's accumulating Cardano for the longer term time horizon? I will talk about the path forward that I see for ADA. We have already set it out. We think essentially you're looking at some sort of reverse head and shoulders. The entire market has looked as good as it kind of has been for a long time. You will know that we were largely out of the market last year, back into it for the first time around about the 5th of January, following a discussion that I held on my Patreons. There's a link in the description for anybody who wants to check that out. So let's take a look at DJED and the impact that it has had. I'm sure I don't need my face on the screen for this, so I'm sure some of you will appreciate that. We've seen since the start of the year. Let's go from the 31st of December. In fact, let's not do that. Someone will comment saying that's not the start of the year. Let's go from the 1st of January. Cardano had a total value locked within its DeFi ecosystem of, and this is in dollars, we're going to look at ADA in a second because it's not that far off all-time highs, of 48, basically $49 million. Today, it's sat at $105 million. So it's more than doubled since the start of the year. You know, this is obviously as the market sentiment shifts, people are potentially going to want to buy and hold and farm and et cetera, when that kind of risk element potentially is deemed to be less. But I think a lot of this has to do with DJED. We also looked at Liquid, which was, you know, is a project I'm a big fan of. I also want to mention Liquid's main competitor, ADA Finance. Massively underappreciated, in my opinion. Massively. And as somebody that, I took part in Ethereum's earliest DeFi, was somebody that was a part of the Uniswap airdrop. Uniswap airdropped, it was a good amount of tokens worth a decent sum to their sort of early MetaMask connectors, and I was one of them. So I've been about, for as long as DeFi's been about, and actually partook in it at an early stage. And I have to be brutally honest, there seems to be a lot less, and I'm talking and you can't argue against this, from a total value. So maybe in terms of number of people, it's just a lot more people that have smaller positions. But in terms of money accrued, there's a lot less interaction, excitement with Cardano. And that could be because obviously DeFi's come around during the bear market. Maybe in the bull market, we see this massive implosion. But this is as it stands, you know, it's in a lot less there's been a lot less of an attraction. And remember, it's still very early days, guys. So please don't take this as I have to be the devil's advocate and put forward both sides of the argument so that you can get a kind of well-balanced view. It's seen a real lack of traction, in my opinion. But that may change, certainly as maybe a new bull is issued in. But if we look at what DJED's done, so the total value locked within DJED is currently $11 million. We're going to look at other stable coins and compare it. Maybe unfair to do, given it's only just birthed, and maybe I should have, and we'll point out which ones are algorithmically backed. But this is also potentially a bullish thing as well, because this means it's got a lot of room to grow, and so does this entire ecosystem as a result. And remember, it's not just the only stable coin. I think maybe people will look for the likes of what Anzan are doing with their USDA. We've got them coming on the show with a little bit more sort of security behind it, if that is a right word to use. So MinSwap in a month is up 29% in terms of TVL. Wing Riders, of course, with their stablecoin swap. We've got Karan hopefully coming back on the show on Thursday. 55% up. Indigo, and so on and so forth. The entire ecosystem, not sure what these guys are even doing on here, by the way. I would love it if we could, this was a project that was a massive failure. I don't want to even talk about it. But the entire ecosystem, barring potentially whatever's, has benefited from the result of, or as a result of DJED. And you can see, when DJED launched, we've seen this real spike, really narrowing it down. This is roughly when DJED launched, this massive jump in terms of TVL. Now, I want to look at TVL in terms of ADA, because it's essentially not that far off all-time highs. And I think it will get there. And this is what I mean. Cardano's DeFi ecosystem is but a seedling. Okay? It has a long, long way to go. And actually, if you can pick the right projects, and we're going to do a top 5 Cardano altcoins within this, you're going to do exceedingly well, certainly from an investment point of view. And that's not investment advice, just my own opinion, something that I'll be looking to do. I'm going to set up a Cardano portfolio that I will share with you, and we'll actually probably incorporate NFTs. We've been pretty good with NFTs. We mentioned the likes of Ape Society, when they were, I think, under 150 ADA, and so on and so forth. So I will put that together. Let's take a look at some individual projects, and then we're going to move on to some sort of more institutional news and price news. This is MinSwap, of course, the top DApp or DEX, I should say. They are the top DApp as well. They saw huge volumes on the back end of this, having been relatively flat. I did see some tweets saying that this was the highest amount of volume it's seen. Obviously not the case, but pretty high indeed. I believe Wing Riders saw the highest amount of volume thus far. Of course, we know they've introduced their stablecoin swap, one of the only dApps to be doing that. You can see this since their induction. with the launch of DJED, you saw massive volume flow. So it's had a very positive effect, but it's still very, very early days. Let's look at Sunday Swap. Sunday Swap, I like what they're doing with Hydra, but look, you know, my honest take on Sunday Swap, I think the ISPO damaged and took out a lot of pools. It's just my own thoughts. You know, I understand the reasons behind it, and my pool included. So maybe I've got a bias here. You know, people went and delegated with pools that were part of the ISPO and kind of picked winners as a result of it. But then it's my own fault for not applying. So guilty as charged. But I think in terms of DEXs, you need to be doing something different. And I really like what they're doing with the Hydra. Maybe they'll come into their own. But I think the other two DEXs, certainly Minswap and Wing Riders, are a lot more appealing to me. But generally, DJED's had an amazing impact. And certainly, you know, and this is going to continue to grow, I believe. Hopefully, DJED continues to excel and gets up to some of these levels. And this is really, really exciting thing. You know, that obviously the largest stablecoins are all fiat-backed. We obviously had UST, which was wiped out. But there are other stable coins out there that are algorithmically backed that, you know, I believe this is Algorand stablecoin, actually. We are going to do a video on Algorand's DeFi ecosystem as well. So you can see that actually DJED is not very high up in the market sort of capitalization of things. In fact, I don't even know. Yeah, we've got DJED, which is 74th. Long way to go, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Mexican peso below it, fused dollar. I want to just take a look at where USDT is before I move on to a little bit more news. So hopefully this expands. Not USDT. No, it's not USDT. Anyway, irrelevant, guys. But hopefully this expands and, you know, we see a nice little growth in it. But right now it's still relatively small and, you know, but it has had a massive impact. And this is just one stable coin of quite a few that are looking to launch. So we'll see what the kind of, you know, if we look at Tron, for example, I'm not a big fan of Tron at all. I'm not comparing Cardano to Tron. I'm pretty sure their stablecoin protocol has done pretty well. But I mean, this has got 5 billion. How has this got 5 billion in terms of value in it? Or even something like, you know, EOS or some of these other coins. Whereas Cardano, there's been a lot less, you know, EOS is somewhat higher, which is mind-boggling to me. And I think there's going to be this shift, and this is what we're all really hoping for. Certainly, I believe it's going to happen with Cardano and its DeFi ecosystem, where it's going to become hot, essentially, and people are going to want to get into it. And if you're already involved in it and sort of nestled in and anchored down, you're going to appreciate you're early to the party, I think, with Cardano's DeFi ecosystem. So very, very positive outlook on it. I think it's brilliant. I think DJED's done wonderful things for Cardano, and I think it's only going to get better and better and better. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So it's had a good impact overall. I want to move on to a little bit of this news now. So we'll talk about the price and what I think is essentially happening. I think you're essentially going to put in some sort of a reverse head and shoulders. Okay, so where you're currently at, you've got to be a little bit careful. I would have liked it to have came and would have had this as a solid neckline. So I'd have liked it to keep drifting up and then to do something like that, maybe pull back slightly or just a touch before we see that continuation. You could absolutely buy you know, and I'm going to put out a Cardano price prediction where I'm going to get into this in a lot more detail. You could absolutely, by the middle of the year, be looking at a Cardano price, you know, back at these sort of levels here, this 70 cents level, even potentially come in and doing something like that, depending on how the sort of macro environment goes. But this isn't really a price prediction video. Lots of interesting things happening. Why increase in whale transactions could be cause for concern. So potentially, this was according... So layer 1 coin Cardano ADA has seen a spike in whale transactions in the past few days. Data from Sentiment revealed. According to the on-chain data provider, the daily count for ADA transactions over $100,000 has significantly increased since February the 3rd. Potentially something to do with DJED. Seems kind of likely, right? As of the 5th of February, 1,526 ADA transactions worth over 100,000 were completed. Market marking the highest daily volume since the 11th of May 2020. So since here, really. And isn't that interesting? Now, I think this has something to do with DJED. And I think this is overlooked. All ADA has in store is, so it talks about how actually this has been a bad sign historically. But actually, I think it's been for different reasons why you've seen this amount of transactions. So certainly interesting, gaining traction in terms of volume, whale volume. And of course, CoinShares, for those of you that aren't familiar, is an institutional arm. They've seen largely outflows, certainly throughout last year. They're now starting to see inflows. I believe they saw the biggest inflow in 7 months recently. And Cardano was essentially a part of that. And actually, Cardano consistently, not just with CoinShares, but also Grayscale, remember it's the largest part of their sort of trust, is consistently seeing inflows, which could suggest potential institutional interest. On that note, guys, I am going to love and leave you. I think I've probably spoke for long enough and given my views on things clearly enough. I think DJED has been a great success. I think it's going to continue to be one. And I think it's only just really getting started. And I think Cardano DeFi is only just really getting started. And I'm going to be putting together a Cardano portfolio for you guys to take a look at. Tell me what you do and don't agree with. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always massively appreciated. So is a comment. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next YouTube video. Have a triumphant Tuesday, guys. See you in the next one.